main events of this convention, and as all of us know, that it is how critical it is to talk to each other among different groups, interfaith groups, and it is amazing to know that there's so many common things that we have between these two great religions, and we can focus on those, then the differences, and move further and work for the common good. And I think this kind of forum will give us that kind of platform to work from, and hopefully move the common good one step further. So with that, our first event of this program is invocation, and we have invocation by all imams and leaders of all three religions. And first, I'd like to welcome Rabbi Weiss, who is going to introduce himself first and then give the invocation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Shalom, good afternoon. Welcome everybody to this very exciting event, to be here with the Muslim Alliance and to see interfaith leaders from around central Indiana and beyond, and Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, Yerushalayim, is truly an exciting event for me. And to me this is special. This is holy land, I believe, that we are treading on here, because we are doing God's work as partners with God in making a better world. So I'd like to start with a prayer to God and for us all for this splendid occasion. Eloheinu v'lehei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of all people, we thank you for this very special and wonderful day, for creating this place, this holy place for us to gather together. And as our ancestors Abraham and Sarah established a tent for all people that offered new hope and new possibility for all people to gather together in peace, we also erect a tent here of peace and security for all people. And we ask your blessings upon us, upon our sharing food together for the nourishments of our body and our spirit, our gathering and discussion, and all the good things that will be coming from this. And our praise and thanks go to God and to the people who gathered here, and we ask for your blessings of peace and security for all people. And I'm honored to recite the traditional Hebrew blessing of gratitude for God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehachianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Praised are you, O Lord our God, who has kept us in life, sustained us, and brought us to celebrate this simcha, this most joyous occasion. Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Weiss, for the very nice introduction and invocation. I'd like to mention that I am the vice chair of the Interfaith Committee here. My name is Sohail Anwar. I'm also a professor at IPUI. Secondly, I would like to invite Professor Michael Cartwright for his invocation. And again, Professor Cartwright is with UIndy and has been there for 14 years. I'd let him introduce first and then give the invocation. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here today. I'm the Dean for Ecumenical and Interfaith Programs at the University of Indianapolis, which, as some of you know, is on the south side of Indianapolis. It's a United Methodist-related institution, and we're very, very pleased to be able to host an event on November 11th, at which Eboo Patel will be speaking about the work of the Interfaith Youth Corps. There's a poster out at the table, and if any of you would like to have more information about that, we'd be happy to provide it. Please join me in the spirit of prayer. Gracious and holy Lord, you create us for community, and you bid us to live together in peace. As we enjoy the fellowship around the table this day, teach us to embrace the prospects for peace, and help us to treasure the relationships that we have with one another. We ask this in your most holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Professor Cartwright. And so the last invocation will be given by Judge David Shahid. And you can introduce yourself first. Thank you.
As was stated, my name is David Shahid, and I'm really standing in for one of the imams, you could just pick whatever center or masjid you would want to choose. But I'm probably a safe pick because that way there's no politics involved, so to speak. But it does give me an opportunity to take, as they say, some privilege in thanking all of you for being here. Many of you, we've kind of been on the road of interfaith before, and so it's just so gratifying and encouraging to see you here this afternoon. What I'm going to do is say the traditional prayer of Muslims, which is the first chapter or surah of the Holy Quran. And it is in Arabic the opening, Al-Fatiha. And it's appropriate as we open this particular session of interfaith and sharing that we would recite the Al-Fatiha. And I'll say it first in Arabic and then in English. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. With God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Praise be to God, the cherisher and sustainer of the worlds. The merciful benefactor, merciful redeemer. Master of the day of judgment. You do we worship, and thine aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those upon whom you have bestowed your grace, those whose portion is not wrath, and who go not astray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Judge Shahid. My name is Sharik Siddiqui. I'm Executive Director of the Muslim Alliance of Indiana. Myself and my president, Dr. Ibad Ansari, are going to be pinch hitting for Muhammad al-Sanusi. He was flying in from DC and I think was not able to make it on behalf of Dr. Saeed. So I'd first like to have Dr. Saeed just introduce the award, the Dr. Sayyid M. Saeed Interfaith Service Award.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ibad Ansari. I'm president of Muslim Alliance of Indiana. We introduced this award on the name of Dr. Sayyid Muhammad Saeed, who has been here more than 10 years as Secretary General of Islam. And he gave us the idea about this Muslim Alliance of Indiana, and he has been instrumental or inspiration for us all along. Now he is in Washington, D.C., working on interfaith and community development. So I would request Sharik to say a few words about our awardee.
All of you, Charlie Wiles doesn't need to be introduced to the people in this room. I think that it comes to no surprise to anybody in this room that Charlie would be the first recipient of the Dr. Sayyid M. Saeed Interfaith Excellence Award. Just as Dr. Saeed doesn't need introduction to all of you. But just a few words before I'm going to hand the mic over to Charlie. Charlie has been a wonderful partner for us. We talk about interfaith dialogue, but Charlie puts that dialogue into action, whether it's trips overseas, whether it's working inner cities with the Jewish, Muslim, and Christian communities. He has a passion for interfaith. It's a passion that he very quietly and humbly shares with our community and brings us together. But I've never seen someone so passionate about interfaith as Charlie has been. This lunch today is one of those projects that he has put together. It's interfaith in action. There will be a dialogue, but bringing this dialogue together is a partnership between Muslims and Christians and Jews. And as you'll hear from John later on, the Jewish community has been a major supporter of this project, and we really appreciate that. But all of this would not have happened without Charlie Wiles. So I'd like to call Dr. Ansari up, and if you guys. So I introduce to you, or reintroduce to you, Charlie Wiles.
Thank you very much. This is very humbling, and particularly to be in such a room full of esteemed people and our esteemed visitors from Israel, from Jerusalem. So, welcome. I accept this award on behalf of this community, such a wonderful community that embraces the spirit of interfaith. And I think of the Interfaith Youth Corps, and I think of the Indianapolis Interfaith Alliance. I think of the Global Studies at Marian University. I think of all the Interfaith Hunger Initiative. I think of all the wonderful things in this community that inspires me and allows me to do my work. And that's where my passion comes from. I've traveled around the world. I'm married to a lovely person from Japan. I've had a wonderful opportunity to prove to myself that people from all different backgrounds, ethnicities, from around the globe have the capacity and the desire to create a better world. So I know that a lot of times the press and we tend to focus on the negative things, but I love this opportunity to get together and focus on the positive. And a couple of anecdotes. One was there's a 26th annual tradition in Indianapolis of an interfaith peace prayer. And it really struck me this year when I saw the people from the different faiths get together and say prayers and sing songs and recite scripture about their common desire for peace. And it occurred to me how lucky we are to live in a country and to live in a community that can embrace those messages, that we can all gain from that wisdom, that collective wisdom that's come through the ages and has come from all four corners of the earth, and how that's our responsibility to build and nurture from that. And particularly our Native Americans, and the Native American spirit and their love, and how they cherish our earth, and how if we would have heeded that message decades ago, what better shape we would be in today. I'd also like to say that a lot of folks in this room are probably familiar with a very famous political scientist from Harvard named Samuel T. Huntington. He wrote an essay in Foreign Policy Journal, Foreign Affairs Journal, later became a book called The Clash of Civilizations, and where there was a lot of truth, I think, in what he wrote. In my experience, and the truth from my experience tells me that it's really a clash of narratives. And through dialogue and through service and through working together, we can take the sharp edges off of those narratives and we can find the capacity to work together. So I'll end with, Sharik told me a week ago I was going to get this award, and I thought, well, I better say something clever. So I'll end with something that I wrote, inspired by Sharik and this honor, is that circumstances have and will continue to conspire to shake the foundation of our humanity. But isn't it good to know that our dream will never die? Thank you very much.
So what we'll do is we'll allow your main entree to be served. So we'll go through. We'll wait for 10 more minutes and then we'll start the dialogue. That'll give you an opportunity to eat. Which is the Friday congregational prayer of Muslims. That we have enough time for you to spend some time with our special guests from Israel and Jerusalem. Before I introduce John Clark, I'd like to invite a special guest from Washington, D.C. He was supposed to be here earlier, but travel delayed him. But I wanted to make sure that I introduced you to him. He is a Muslim Hoosier. He is in D.C., but he has made a commitment to me these past 3 years that every annual convention of the Muslim Alliance of Indiana, he flies back from Washington, D.C. to be with us, and has been instrumental in shaping our programs, bringing people to, and connecting the Muslim Alliance of Indiana to the global world of interfaith. He is my rock, and I call him that. He is my rock, even though he's in D.C. He remains that. Muhammad al-Sanusi is a Muslim Hoosier. He graduated with a LLM from IU Bloomington, then went on and went to the Center on Philanthropy under the ISNA Fellowship in Nonprofit Management. He's served as a director at the Islamic Society of North America for the past 8 years. And for the past 2.5 years, he traveled to Washington, D.C. with Dr. Syed Mohammed Saeed to start the Interfaith Office in Washington, D.C. of ISNA, which has been doing amazing things. And today has been very much part of the connections that Muhammad has made for us. He's one of my best friends, and he is a really good friend of many of you here. He was very active in Interfaith. I'd like to introduce Muhammad al-Sanusi.
Well, thank you. Assalamu alaikum and greeting of peace. It's always my pleasure. It's always good to be here in Indiana, a place that I love, in fact, and I love the people of Indiana and the state of Indiana. This particular state actually gives me a lot. I got my education, higher education in this state. I got married in this state, which is most important. So I'm always glad to be here. Of course, Dr. Saeed sent greetings, and he would like to be here, but he couldn't be here because of previous commitments. But he sent greetings to all of you, greetings of peace and greetings of harmony. In fact, we as a Muslim community, American Muslim community, we value Dr. Saeed's commitment to interfaith and understanding and fostering relationship with people of other faith. And I believe that he was able actually to push this envelope and to get the American Muslim community into the interfaith and how it is crucial to build this kind of relationship. And it is true that we moved to Washington to open ISNA office for interfaith and community alliances, but actually our goal is actually to create these national initiatives, but we will look for organizations like Muslim Alliance of Indiana to implement our national initiatives at the grassroots level, because we believe that building bridges and understanding between the local synagogue and the local Islamic center and the local church is so crucial. At this time of age that we're living in. So for that, I am very delighted to be here. Just to highlight a few things that we have been doing. Of course, we have several dialogues at the national level. We have dialogue with the National Council of Churches. It's the largest Protestant organization with 50 million members and 113,000 synagogues and 35 denominations. We do have dialogue with the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, and in fact, Dr. Saeed couldn't be here because he's going to be in Milwaukee for the 12th Muslim Catholic dialogue, starting from Revelation to family values to the place of religion and the freedom of religion. So I think, and also we do a lot of interfaith with other denominations as well. But the major breakthrough, in fact, happened 2.5 years ago when we established our relationship with the Union for Reform Judaism. It's the largest Jewish organization in this country with 1.5 million members, with the 988 synagogues, and we had a dialogue with them. The president of the URJ, Rabbi Eric Yaffe, visited with our convention, with the Muslim community, and he got a standing ovation because he brought a message of peace, a message of harmony, a message of coexistence. He literally said that, we have two options. We as an American, citizen, we need to live together. We don't want the Jewish community to understand and to know about Islam through the distorted image from the TV. But I would like the Jewish community to know Islam from their neighbor, from the Islamic center that's closer to them. And he would like ISNA to facilitate that. In a few months, they invited our president, Dr. Ingrid Matheson, and Dr. Saeed and myself. We visited with the Union for Reform Judaism Convention for the first time. They were about 6,000 Jewish leaders. This is the delegates from all synagogues across the country. We were able to dialogue with them. Dr. Matheson spoke there, and the two presidents came with a project called Children of Abraham. Put together a synagogue and the Islamic center to study the book. Our scholars sat down, they produced a book, And the local synagogue and the Islamic Center, they are studying the book, addressing issues, how the Jewish pray, how the Muslim pray, issues of zakat and sadaqah in Judaism, issues of even the place of Jerusalem in our both traditions. So these kind of things. So when we open that kind of dialogue with the URJ, we got an invitation from the conservative Jewish movement, which the second largest Jewish community with 1 million members and 1,000 synagogues. And we are actually, next year, we are having the first Muslim-Jewish relations conference with the conservative Jew in Harvard Seminary in the spring of next year. And then we are also building relationship with the Reconstructionist, with the Orthodox Jew. We have, in fact, in November, from November 14 to 15, we have a program with the Foundation of Ethnic Understanding. It's an Orthodox Jew a twinning program. Twinning meaning that putting together an Islamic center and a synagogue at the grassroots level. Last year we did it. We had about 56 Islamic center participated. This year we have 100. So we'll have the synagogue and the Islamic center together so that the Muslims will denounce anti-Semitism and the Jewish community will denounce Islamophobia. And we had a one-page ad in the New York Times. We had a PSA aired on the CNN and all kind of things that we're trying to do. In fact, our experience here building relationship with the Jewish community got the attention of Europe. Just 2 months ago, we received 28 imams and rabbis from 10 European countries to the United States. They came to New York, they came to Washington, so that we can share experience of peace and coexistence. So I think we have a lot of work to do, and we are so happy and excited to do this, and we are so happy actually would like to thank you actually that you hosted our guest, the Qadi of Jerusalem and the Rabbi Ron. And they actually, when they approached Dr. Saeed to come, we said, well, we would like to give the opportunity. We would like them to visit Indiana, to meet with all of you, because this is what we need to do. Sitting in Washington, whatever opportunity of dialogue that we got, we will rely on our grassroots. So thank you, congratulations, Muslim Alliance of Indiana, of doing this, and I think the organization is actually taking the right direction. Any kind of support that we can provide, we are ready to do that. Thank you again, and I'm so delighted to be here, and thank you, Sharik, for that warm introduction. Thank you.
And I will now, this is one of my days of friends, from Charlie to Mohammed Sanusi, and John Clark I've known since 1994 when I was a student in his wife's international politics class. And John has been a mentor all this time, and I'd like to hand over the rest of our program to John Clark. He is with Marian College and will be also working with the Muslim Alliance of Indiana on an establishment of a Muslim Hoosier think tank. John Clark.
Thank you very much.
Well, this is a great event that we have today, and I'm going to get out of the way as quickly as possible. But I do need to say a few things. I mean, partly as introduction and acknowledgement, but also to give the two speakers a chance to cleanse their palates and be ready to speak. The first is to acknowledge and thank the Muslim Alliance of Indiana for putting on this event. Many of you know, but probably not all of you do know, that the Muslim Alliance of Indiana is still a relatively new organization representing an established and growing community. After September 11th in 2001, a group of Muslims got together informally to try to clarify misunderstandings about Islam, about Muslims in America, Muslims in Indiana. In 2004, they established an organization representing at that time, 280,000 Muslims in Indiana. And they've flourished, they've blossomed, and in some ways, this lunch at the bigger conference, I think, is a sign of the strength, the self-confidence, and the generosity of the Muslim Alliance of Indiana and of the Muslim community. It's a sign of the strength of the community to be able to pull together an event like this conference. And the strength that now is taken for granted. Maybe 1 or 2 conferences ago, you'd have a few high-profile politicians because this was a new group they were reaching out to. Now it's not so new, it's established, and it's a strong group, a strong member of our community. It's a sign of self-confidence for the Muslim Alliance of Indiana to be able to bring together the two speakers that are here, representing an Israeli Jewish and Jerusalem Muslim perspective. It's a sign of self-confidence that the Muslim Alliance of Indiana welcomed the participation of several Jewish groups. And I want to say a few words about those groups before we get started. Because one of the groups has transformed itself in the last hour and 10 minutes. First, many of you know, all of you should know, Marcia Goldstone of the Jewish Community Relations Council, one of the oldest Jewish community pardon? She is one of the youngest heads of one of the oldest organizations, Jewish organizations in the country. The JCRC was founded in 1942, serves as the intergroup relations public policy arms of the organized Jewish community in the greater Indianapolis area. Under Marcia and the other leaders of the JCRC, this idea of coalition building, of reaching out and finding partners to solve problems, that's been a great achievement. Another supporter of this in the Jewish community is Brit Zedek Shalom, which soon will lose that name, I understand. It's the Jewish Alliance for Peace, Justice and Peace, the largest grassroots organization dedicated to a negotiated Israeli-Palestinian peace, close to 50,000 supporters, 40 chapters throughout the U.S., including one in Indiana in Bloomington, 1,000-member rabbinic cabinet. Brit Zedek works primarily in the Jewish community to promote active U.S. diplomacy, promote Israel's long-term security through a powerful resolution of the conflict. Sue Swartz, who's Brit Zedek's national vice president, is here, and Sue says that as of noon, Brit Zedek merged with J Street, which is a very active, creative, imaginative, sometimes controversial group in Washington, and Brit Zedek's going to play a role as a kind of grassroots outreach for J Street, and I'm sure that Sue would be happy to talk to you more about that. So all that introduction that I gave is probably now obsolete. You'll have to give me a new paragraph the next time. Congregation Bethel Zedek's Alan and Linda Cohen Center for Jewish Learning and Living has helped pull this together. So is Bridging the Gap, which Rafia Saeed helped form to promote dialogue. So I'd like to thank the 4 Jewish organizations that have helped pull this together for their support, and also as a sign of the Muslim Alliance of Indiana's self-confidence, that they can afford to have good friends work with them. The last feature of the Muslim Alliance that I think this pays tribute to is generosity. The generosity is not just to have a closed dialogue for members of the Muslim Alliance, it's to open it up to all of us. And for that, we're very grateful. And I should ask our visitors to come and share generously their experiences with us. I'm going to ask Rabbi Kronish and Kadi Zipda, please, to come here. And I'm going to ask the two of you to introduce the other briefly, since I understand you know each other. But I would like to introduce the translator. What is your name?
Gadi Bukai.
Gadi Bukai is the translator. And you're very good, aren't you?
I will make mistakes from time to time, and I will see if you are paying attention.
I've been told that if the translator makes any mistakes about Algerian cooking, Mary Von Karzabi from the Islamic Center of Indianapolis can help, and I know my former intern Tim Delaney is going to be able to help with any classical Arabic translations. So you're in good company. Well, please, the program now is yours.
If you don't mind, I'm going to stand so I can see everybody. Is that all right? Yeah. Good. Okay. Good. So I need a word of introduction before we begin what we're going to do together. I'm Ron Kronish, and I'm a Reform rabbi who's lived in Israel for 30 years, and I'm traveling this week with Qadi Mohammed Zibdi, who's the Qadi of Jerusalem and a citizen of Jaffa. And we are here to talk with you not about politics. We are not politicians. We don't know much more about the political stuff than you do from reading your newspapers, and if yours are as bad as ours, then you know nothing, or you know disinformation. So we're not here to tell you how to solve the Middle East crisis. We could do that after dessert. Because we have the answers, we're just not going to tell them to you now. And the reason I say that is that in the question period, if you want to ask political science questions, you can ask them to political scientists. You should ask us about things we know something about, which is dialogue, religion, education, things like that. Okay, that was a little hint. But I'm not the moderator of the question period, so you can do what you want. Okay, the way we're going to do this is in three parts. Part one is we're going to introduce ourselves. Say a few words about who we are, a little bit about our identity. I'm going to take a few minutes, then Kadi Zibdi is going to do it. Part two, we're going to say a little bit about the work of interreligious dialogue in Israel and Palestine, a few headlines of what we do and what's special about it. And the third part is a reflection about the future, where we think things are heading and what's our role. I warn you that because we don't have enough time, time is short and it's Friday, and I know the Muslims have to do Jumu'ah prayer. We're going to do this in email or internet style. That is, you only get the headlines. You want the full story, you have to click to get the whole thing. Okay? So we're not going to tell you everything in advance. We're only going to do you the short version. Okay, so. So I will say a few words about myself. I grew up in the United States in a place called Miami Beach, Florida. There's a real place there, real people live there. And I studied in the Northeast, various universities, became a Reform rabbi. And at a certain point in time, my wife and I spent a year in Israel, and we got what we call the Zionist bug, which means we felt that this was the place we belonged, we wanted to live our lives. And a few years later, after we finished all of our education in 1979, 30 years ago, we made Aliyah to Israel. We moved to Israel. So I am what we call over there a diaspora-born Israeli Jew. Meaning I was born here, grew up here, but I moved to Israel, and you're going to ask me why. So the answer is that I thought that this was the place on earth where I felt most at home and where I could live my Jewish identity out in the fullest in a Jewish society that also tries to be a democratic society and that has obligations to the minorities in its midst. So I'm a Reform rabbi, which is a little confusing. And sometimes when people ask me, what kind of Jew are you? I say, I'm a Reconformadox Zionist. I was very, where was the speaker before from Islam? I was very amazed that you knew all those things, Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, Orthodox. It's pretty good. So, which means that I take from all these movements, I think they all have something to gain. I have a daughter who's a conservative rabbi. My sister, blessed memory, was an Orthodox Jew, and we combined them all in our family. And I'm a Zionist in that I believe that the Jewish people need a strong Jewish state, but one that is sensitive to the minorities in our midst. And last, I come from the West, and I moved to the Middle East. And with my move, I brought with me certain Western values having to do with pluralism and tolerance and democracy and respect for others and listening. These values are not inherent to the Middle East. We have a culture that's very loud and raucous. They call it Mediterranean. Well, if you've been to Italy, it's Greece, it's something like that. A lot of people are yelling and screaming at one another, beeping horns, and we have a very different society. So I bring with me, myself to Israel, certain Western values that I've tried to put to practice over the years in my work as an educator. Last comment for the introduction. In 1991, January 16th, 1991, I and a few other people founded the organization which we call the ICCI, the Interreligious Coordinating Council. We remember the date. It was the date. Anybody else remember the date? January 16th. You know where you were then? It was the night before the first Gulf War. And we went to a meeting in a church in the center of Jerusalem with gas masks in hand. Jews, Christians. At that point, there weren't Muslims involved, and we founded an organization which tries to bring different groups in our society to work together for mutual understanding and for peace. That's my introduction. Kadi Zibdi will be next. That was part one.
Gadi will Okay. I am Mohammed Zibde. I'm very sorry that my English is very bad, so I will speak Hebrew. אני אדבר בעברית, וזה מאוד סמלי שאני ערבי ומדבר בעברית, ומי שמתרגם הוא יהודי שיתרגם לאנגלית.
It's very symbolic that as an Arabi coming from Israel, I will speak Hebrew, and an Israeli guy here will translate to English.
זה רק ממחיש כמה חשוב להכיר את הצד האחר, להכיר את השפה שלו, בכדי להיות איתו בדיאלוג שהוא דיאלוג חיובי.
It just demonstrates how important it is to understand the language of the other side so you can be in dialogue in a positive kind of dialogue.
אני יליד העיר יפו, אני מתגורר בתוך מדינת ישראל ולא מעבר לגבולות 48, אלא בתוך גבולות 48.
I was born in Jaffa, next to Tel Aviv, where I live there, and I'm part of the communities, the Arab community that live inside the Israeli borders that were before 1948.
ידוע שמדינת ישראל קמה בשנת 48, ושנת 48 הייתה שנה, זאת אומרת, הייתה הקמת מדינת ישראל, אבל מצד שני לגבי הפלסטינאים זאת הייתה טרגדיה מאוד גדולה.
People know that 1948 was the time of the establishment of Israel, and at the same time for the Palestinian people it was a major tragedy.
כי כידוע משפחות נקרעו ואנשים איבדו את אדמותיהם, את קרוביהם, את בתיהם, והעם הפלסטיני בעצם מאז חי תקופה מאוד קשה, כאשר חלק ממנו נמצא בתוך מדינת ישראל והחלק האחר נמצא מחוץ למדינת.
The difficulty was that some people lost their land, some people lost their houses, people left their places, and it was a major thing as some of the people remain within the borders of Israel and some had to leave, living very hard life.
אנחנו הערבים בתוך מדינת ישראל חיים כאזרחים בתוך המדינה.
We, the Arab that live within the Israel borders, living as civilians of Israel, citizens of Israel.
להבדיל משאר העם הפלסטיני שנמצא באזור עזה ובגדה המערבית, כאשר הם בעצם נמצאים תחת כיבוש.
Which difference us from the rest of the Palestinians who lives in Gaza or in the West Bank who are living under the occupation.
נעזוב את החלק העצוב בכל העניין ואני אחזור אל החיים המשותפים בתוך מדינת ישראל.
I will leave the sad part of the story and we will go back to life inside Israel.
אני גדלתי בתוך בית שהיה בית שהתחלקנו בו אנחנו ועוד משפחה יהודית.
I was raised in a house where we shared a house between our and a Jewish family that shared the same house.
שיחקנו ביחד כילדים, לפעמים גם למדנו ביחד, והתפתחו בינינו יחסים מאוד חיוביים.
As children we played together, we studied sometimes together, and the relationship were very strong, a build-up of a good relationship.
התחלתי את דרכי כמחנך לפני יותר מ-30 שנה.
I started my way as educator about more than 30 years ago.
האמונה שלי כאדם מוסלם שהתקרבות בין עמים צריכה להיות הבסיס להבנה בין שני הצדדים.
And my beliefs as a Muslim is that having the two people together should be the base for understanding among the people. Understanding should be the base of bringing them together. Yeah.
לכן בהיותי מחנך עסקתי והיה חשוב לי מאוד לעסוק בקירוב לבבות בין יהודים וערבים.
So as an educator, it was very important for me to participate in putting Jewish and Arab together yeah.
אני רוצה לציין שבעצם הערבים למדו במערכת חינוך ערבית נפרדת מהמערכת החינוך היהודית.
And I want to mention that Arabs were studying in a separate school system, which was different from the Jewish system.
לכן כמורה במשך 10 שנים וכמנהל בית ספר אחר כך כ-15 שנים ארגנתי פעולות של דיאלוג בין נוער ערבי ויהודי.
Therefore, as a teacher for 10 years and as a school principal for 15 years, I organized dialogues between students, Jewish and Arab students.
לפני כ8 שנים אני משמש כקאדי בית הדין השרעי בירושלים.
Since 8 years ago, I'm acting as a Qadi in the Shari court in Jerusalem.
ולפני כ3-4 שנים הצטרפתי לקבוצת קדם, שאנחנו נדבר עליה היום.
And about 3-4 years ago, I joined the Kedem group, which I'm going to talk today.
אני אעביר עכשיו את המיקרופון לחברי הרב רון בכדי שידבר איך קמה קבוצת קדם.
And the rabbi will speak about the establishment of this group of Kedem.
Okay, that was the first point. Second point has to do with our work in interreligious dialogue between Jews, Christians, and Muslims in Israel. Kadi Zibdi mentioned a group we started 7 years ago called Kedem, not the wine, but Kedem stands for a Hebrew acronym Kol Dati Mifayes. We translate it into English as Voices of Religious Reconciliation. And what we did was invite Orthodox rabbis in Israel from mainstream Israel to enter into dialogue with Muslims and Christians, all citizens of the same country. So it was not West Bank and Gaza, it was all inside Israel, where people from the Jewish majority, which is 80%, met with people, religious leaders on the grassroots level from the Israeli, Palestinian, Arab minority. And it was a remarkable process that went on for 5 years. And I could tell you lots of stories about it if the time would allow, but because time is short, I'm just going to give you 4 principles that we learned from our experience in this dialogue group and others that we do with women, with youth, with young adults and educators. So we've developed now a 4-part model. Maybe this will be useful to some of you here who do similar things. Or maybe it will resonate. Maybe you're already doing it. First thing we do when we bring people together is what we just did now. We get to know each other as persons. So if I'm in a dialogue group with Muhammad, I get to know him as Muhammad, and he's Muhammad. He doesn't represent all the Palestinian people in the world, or he doesn't represent the government of Palestine, or anything other than Muhammad. And I represent myself and my ideas. And as you can imagine, if we have 10 Jews in the group, we have more than 10 ideas. And guess what? If we have 10 Muslims in the group, we'll also have more than 10 ideas. And same with the Christians. Which means that we bring human diversity from each religious tradition, which is the truth, into the picture. And nobody speaks for everybody. So the first element is the personal element, getting to know one another personally. And we spend a lot of time doing that in all of our dialogue groups, and we feel it's very important. In our part of the world, we refer to this as demonizing the other, okay? Because Palestinians in the Jewish mindset are what? Terrorists, suicide bombers, etc. And Jews in the Palestinian mindset are occupiers, settlers, soldiers. Okay, those are the mindsets. That's the media stereotype. That's what you read about. That's what you see on your TV screens every day. So we have to get beyond that. And we only get beyond that when we get to meet one another. So that was point one. Second thing we do is a little bit of interreligious learning. Open up the Quran, teach it to Jews. Open up the Bible or the Talmud and teach it to Muslims, etc. Now, of course, you need the right teachers with the right interpretations. Otherwise, you could have some problems. But we believe in interreligious learning, particularly with a stress on common humanistic values. And it's absolutely shocking to discover how little each person knows about the other's religion. Maybe it's not shocking to you here in America. But in our part of the world, nobody knows anything about the other religion. So we do a little bit of learning. And I say if we do it right, if we have the good rabbis teaching it the right way, or imams, then we develop an interreligious partnership. And these two levels, the first is the personal, and the second is the interreligious learning, build 2 floors of trust. Okay, so we spend a lot of time building trust. Then comes the hard stuff. Then the third element is to put the issues of the conflict on the table. And Kadi Zibdi can tell you, and he will tell you in a minute, that we discussed any issue on the table that was on people's minds. The war in Gaza, the war in Lebanon, this terrorist incident, that incident. People put what is on their minds on the table. And when it's done right, and when it's carefully facilitated, when there's a lot of trust in the room, nobody yells at one another, nobody screams at one another, nobody slams the door and leaves. They listen to the religious/national narrative of the other person. And if you do it long enough, like a year, 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, you might even really get sensitized to the narrative of the other, which at the beginning you thought, he's wrong. He's just got it all wrong. You know, he learned history the wrong way. We learned it the right way. Okay, so after a while, you get sensitized to the narrative of the other, and the narrative is religious and historical. And the fourth point. Just one more thing about the third point. The third point is very difficult. Talking about the real issues in the spirit of genuine dialogue means you hear a lot of things that you don't like hearing. Okay, and so this is not a feel-good dialogue. This means really, genuinely saying what you think and feel. And if you do it over time and careful, you can do it in a spirit of friendship and collegiality. One of the amazing things we've seen over the years is that people don't want to leave the group. They want in because something meaningful and honest is happening here. The fourth point. The fourth point is action. Take some action together. Could be educational, could be political if you're politically, or it could be social. It could be a million different things. But one of my Muslim colleagues said to me many years ago, dialogue is not enough. Let's do something together. And it could be small things, and it could be gestures of reconciliation. But let's also include an action element, and let's not just talk. That's a little bit what we've learned, and I'm now going to turn it back to Kadi Zibdi to share some of his experiences, personal experiences, in this process.
אני רוצה להתחיל את החלק השני בפסוק מהקוראן שנאמר בו
I want to start with a part from the Quran that say,
האל עשוי להביא אהבה ביניכם לבין אלה שלקחתם כאויבים.
the God will bring love among you and those who you took as enemies.
הפסוק הזה בעצם מראה עד כמה האסלאם מאמין שאויבות לא תמשיך לעד.
This part demonstrates that Islam showing that being an enemy will not continue forever. Oh. The meaning is that Islam believes that enemy will not last forever, being an enemy.
והאויב של היום הוא עשוי להיות החבר של המחר.
And the enemy of today might be a friend of tomorrow.
לכן אני, מתוך אמונה זו, הצטרפתי לקבוצת קדם.
As a result of this belief, I joined Kedem.
קדם היא קבוצה של מנהיגי דת, רבנים, קאדים ואימאמים ואנשי כמורה נוצרים.
Kedem is a group of religious leaders from all three religious imams, qadis, rabbis, and from the Christian part as well.
למרות המספר הקטן של המשתתפים, שמגיע ל-28 משתתפים,
Although we are only 28 people in the group,
אבל ההשפעה שלנו היא גדולה, כי לכל אחד מאיתנו יש את הקהילה שלו שהיא מושפעת ממנו באופן ישיר.
but we have an effect on our communities as each one of us have its own community and supporters behind him.
תאמינו לי כשאני אומר לכם שדיאלוג בתוך מדינת ישראל בין אנשי דת משני הצדדים יותר קשה מדיאלוג שנעשה כאן בארצות הברית בין בני הדתות השונות.
And believe me that when I'm telling you that dialogue, interfaith dialogue in Israel is much more difficult than what you have here in the United States.
ובכל זאת אנחנו, כפי שהזכיר חברי הרב רון, התחלנו את הדיאלוג כאשר המטרה הראשונה הייתה להכשיר את הקרקע לקראת דיאלוג בנושאים חשובים ומרכזיים.
And as my friend Ron mentioned, the goal was to establish the base for the dialogue in order to achieve some important goals.
לכן היה חשוב בהתחלה לחפש דברים משותפים וערכים משותפים בין כל הדתות.
Therefore, it was very important for us to find the common values between the different religions.
וכמובן החלק הלימודי, כאשר כל אחד לומד על הצד האחר לפי בקשת האחר.
And of course, the joint studying, that everybody is studying on the other side and based on the request of the other side.
לנושאים המרכזיים כן הגענו בדיאלוג שלנו.
To the main principles we did reach in our dialogue.
לדוגמה ניתן למשל עניין מסגד אל-אקצא והכותל המערבי.
For example, we spoke about the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Western Wall.
אז כמובן לאחר שכל אחד שמע את האמת של הצד השני לגבי חשיבות המקום הזה מבחינה דתית עבורו.
So of course, when everybody heard about the importance of the holy place of his place to the other side,
כל אחד מהמשתתפים בדיאלוג הבין שחייבים למצוא פתרון לסוגיה הזאת שנקראת מסגד אל-אקצא והכותל המערבי.
everybody participating in the dialogue understood that there is a need to find a solution for the problems called the Al-Aqsa in the Western Wall.
אנחנו הבאנו את האמת שלנו כמוסלמים, שמסגד אל-אקצא הוא מקום מקודש למוסלמים, ושהמוסלמים לעולם לא יוותרו על התפילה בו ועל שלמותו.
We brought to the table the fact that Al-Aqsa is a holy place for the Muslims, and we will never give up the idea of praying, using, and being there.
אבל בו זמנית אנחנו גילינו הבנה שהמקום מאוד חשוב גם ליהדות וליהודים, ולכן אמרנו באופן ברור שאנחנו אין לנו, אלא יש לנו הבנה מאוד גדולה לכך שהמקום הזה קדוש ליהודים, ועל כן חשוב שגם הם יתפללו בחלק שנקרא הכותל המערבי.
At the same time, we understood that the place is a holy place also for the Jewish people, and we understood that they have a need and they want to continue their ability to access there and to pray at the place. And are we talking about next to the Western Wall?
נושאים כמו הנושא הזה, היינו מתדיינים בהם, והייתי אומר שהיה יוצא עשן מתוך החדרים כאשר התווכחנו בנושאים כאלה.
When we discussed those issues, the smoke was coming out of those rooms.
אבל זה לא מנע מאיתנו לצאת מהחדרים ולהמשיך עם הכבוד ההדדי.
It was not an obstacle, although it was not an obstacle to come out after the discussion and to come as people that understand each other and honor each other's side.
לגבי הריגתם של חפים מפשע, גם כן זה היה נושא מאוד מרכזי וחשוב בשיחות ובדיאלוג שהיו ביניהם.
An important part of the dialogue was the killing of innocent people.
Agreeing that we denounce the killing of everyone.
Yeah,
Agreement that we all denounce.
we came up with an agreement, as the rabbi said.
לא פעם יצאנו בהודעות לכלי התקשורת שאנחנו מגנים את הריגת החפים מפשע בשני הצדדים.
More than once we came out with announcement to the media that we are denouncing the killing of innocent people.
דיברנו על השפעת הכיבוש בגדה המערבית ועזה על הצד הפלסטיני.
We spoke about the effect of the occupation in the western bank and the Gaza Strip.
שמענו דעה שונה מהצד היהודי שצריך לציין שהרבנים שהשתתפו איתנו היו מהרבנים אורתודוקסיים שהאמינו שבמדינת ישראל הגדולה מהים עד הנהר.
We heard the opinion of some of the rabbis that were participating in the dialogue that were Orthodox, believing in the fact that Israel should be from the big sea to the river.
אבל הדיאלוג הביא להשפעה מאוד ברורה, ואנחנו שמחנו שדיאלוג משנה או גורם לאנשים לשנות עמדות ולשנות ולחשוב בחשיבה מציאותית.
But the dialogue itself was very important for us as people changed positions and understood the other side and the ultimate goal.
כתוצאה מדיאלוג כזה, חלק מהרבנים בא גם ואמר, אני משנה דעה ואני חושב ששני העמים צריכים לחיות זה לצד זה בשתי מדינות נפרדות.
As a result of the dialogue, some of the rabbis stood up and said, I am changing my position. Now I understand that both people can live together side by side.
לא רק על הבעיה הפלסטינית דיברנו, אלא גם דיברנו על זכויות לערבים החיים בתוך מדינת ישראל.
We didn't speak only about the Palestinian problem, we spoke also about rights for the Israeli Arabs who lives within the Israel state, within the borders of the Israel state.
ואנחנו מצאנו עידוד מאוד גדול מהעמדות של הרבנים שהשתתפו בדיאלוג לגבי נושאים החשובים הקשורים בזכויות שלנו כערבים בתוך מדינת ישראל.
We were very encouraged by the position of the rabbis who participate in the dialogue.
ניתן דוגמאות מאוד ככה במהירות לגבי נושאים שבאמת התעודדנו בעמדתם של הרבנים. למשל, ולדוגמה אני אומר, העלינו את הנושא של הקצאת מקומות לתפילה במקומות ציבוריים כמו בתי חולים, אוניברסיטאות למוסלמים.
For example, one encouraging discussion was about the rabbis agreeing that there should be allocation of prayer sites for Muslims in public places like hospitals and so on.
לכן היו פניות משותפות שלנו לכמה בתי חולים ולאוניברסיטאות, ואלה נענו לבקשות, לפניות שלנו, והקציעו מקומות תפילה למוסלמים, כדוגמת מקומות התפילה שהוקצאו ליהודים.
And for example, we jointly approach locations like hospitals and universities, asking them to establish or to allocate places for Muslims to pray, similar to the Jewish places, and the result we had a positive result.
הגענו גם להבנות בקשר לעניין החינוך, כי בעצם עניין החינוך הוא נושא מאוד מרכזי לגבי דיאלוג ולגבי חיים משותפים.
We also achieved some agreement about education, since education has a major part of dialogue and the joint lives of Muslims and Jews.
בתוכניות שלנו להיפגש עם שרים בממשלת ישראל בכדי להשפיע על שינוי תוכניות לימודים לגבי כבוד האדם בכל הדתות ולגבי זכויות של מיעוטים.
In our plans, we want to approach ministers in Israel in order to change the study curriculum and to achieve better programs reflecting civil rights and minorities' rights.
כמובן שיש חשיבות להמשך הדיאלוג. אנחנו מאוד מקווים שהקבוצה שלנו תגדל ושההשפעה שלנו תהיה יותר גדולה.
We really hope that the dialogue will continue, that the group will get more people in, and that our ability to affect will grow as well.
Thank you. Last point. What about the future? Here I'm going to violate my own rules and say one political comment. It's a political / religious comment. You don't have to agree with it, it's okay. I believe that we will have in our lifetime a political solution to the Middle East crisis. We had it in Northern Ireland, in South Africa, and many other places where people were living in depression and thought it would never happen. It's going to happen for us too, and the sooner the better. And therefore, I and my colleagues work on the assumption that there will be, sooner or later, a two-state solution, state of Palestine side by side with the state of Israel. And then the question is, what do we do next? Are we prepared, not just for a political solution, which is superficial and artificial, somebody makes borders and this and that. Are we prepared to live together? That's the question. Okay. Will we be able to forge a society, a country, a region of not separation but normalization? Where I can go to, right now I can go for lunch in Amman and maybe in the future dinner in Damascus. I used to be able to go down to Bethlehem, which is about 5 minutes from where I live in Jerusalem, or up to Ramallah, which is 10 minutes from where I used to live. This is what we're talking about. Okay. We want. So the question is, how do we move to create peaceful relations between peoples as collective identities and between people and individuals? And the answer to that, my friends, is not a political answer. The politicians don't know anything about that. They know how to, like lawyers, any lawyers here? They know how to make agreements between governments, like they did 16 years ago in Oslo, and then the next 16 years you argue about why your side didn't live up to the agreement. Okay, we're not talking about that. We're talking about learning to live together. And so we call this, in Christianity, we call it metanoia. Changing the hearts and minds of the people to learn to live in peace together. Okay, that's not a political job, and it doesn't take one cadencia, one term, and I don't get elected or not elected if I do it. That's an educational, religious, spiritual, psychological job. It's going to take a few generations, and we might as well get started now. And our position is we get started even before the conflict is resolved. There are some people, a lot of people don't like that idea. They think it's wrong. They say, well, after we fix up the conflict, then we'll talk. No, we get started now, and then when the conflict resolved, we'll be in a position to do a lot more. So the last point, my point, is what is the future? The future is changing the hearts and minds of the people to learn to live in peace. And let's start now and not wait till it's too late. Please.
מה שמבדיל בינינו, אנחנו כקבוצה שנמצאים בדיאלוג, לבין הפוליטיקאים,
what is separate between us as a group of the dialogue to the politicians,
שאנחנו מאמינים שיהיה שלום, אבל הם רק מדברים על שלום.
that we really believe that there will be a peace, and they only talk about peace.
אנחנו מתפללים שיום יבוא וגם הם יאמינו בשלום.
We pray that there will be a day that politicians as well will believe in peace.
כפי שאמרתי, לעתיד אני חושב שמאוד חשוב שהקבוצה שלנו תתרחב, ישתתפו בה עוד יותר מנהיגים משני הצדדים, וזאת בכדי באמת שנוכל להשפיע על הקהילות שאנחנו חיים בתוכן.
So, as I said, we hope that our group will have new people in order to extend our operation and to act more.
אלוהים ברא אותנו בני אדם שונים, אבל הוא ברא אותנו כמשפחה אחת.
God make us as different human beings, but we are all one big family.
ומאחר ואחד משמות האלוהים באסלאם הוא הסלאם,
As a result, one of the names of God in Islam is As-Salam.
אנחנו מאוד מקווים שיום יבוא והשלום יבוא.
We truly hope that one day we will have the peace.
I'll take a couple. First, about the timing. We can stay here as long as we want within certain bounds. I know that some people want to go to prayers, and so you're welcome to slip out. Yeah. So we don't have infinite time, but we do have time for questions. And I'll make at the end an announcement about a few follow-up events where we can continue these conversations here in Indianapolis. So if you have any questions, Pierre Atlas.
Welcome, Ethel Wasafan. I'm Pierre Atlas, director of the Lugar Franciscan Center for Global Studies at Marian University. In the peace studies literature, they make a distinction between bottom-up peace building and top-down peacemaking, which is what you were just talking about. And Kedem is obviously engaged very importantly in the bottom-up peace building, which is the cultural educational aspect. So my question is, as difficult as it has been for the 28 of you to learn each other's narratives, respect them, and all of this, in some ways you end up, over time, it seems to me, sort of preaching to the choir within your own group. How, or maybe I'm wrong, but how do people in the broader Jewish-Israeli community, Muslim-Palestinian citizen of Israel community, how do they view your group? And are you making inroads beyond your interfaith dialogue group into the larger communities on your own side? And for the Qadi, and also beyond the Palestinian citizens of Israel, how is the organization and what you do viewed by Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza?
That was a good cluster of questions. Do you want to take a couple more questions before answering? Yeah, let's take a couple more questions and bundle them together into the answers. Award-winning Charlie Wiles, please.
For lack of a better word, is there an Obama factor, and does that Obama factor play differently with the Israeli Palestinians, the Israelis, and people in the West Bank?
We want to make sure that he earns that Nobel Peace Prize. The Obama factor would be, has it made a difference for what you're trying to do with the election of President Obama here? I don't know if you heard that we had an election back in November. And we're wondering if that makes your life easier, different, or if it just doesn't touch it whatsoever. Please.
I'd be curious to know how the Jewish and the Arab families happen to live together in the same house in 1948.
Same building.
Oh, same building.
So there was just a request for a clarification of biography for the Qadi living in the same house with the Jewish family who's living in the same building, which was maybe not that unusual as sharing bedrooms, which would be a good story. Yes, please.
I just to find out, as it stands now, what are the rights of the minorities within the state of Israel, and is that there is a difference between minority versus the majority rights
Okay, so we have a factual question about the rights of the minority that probably would be a relatively straightforward answer. You want to, okay. Oh, not straightforward at all. Because I would just say, go look at Wikipedia. But that's way too easy. Let's take two more. Yes, please. Which makes all the hands go up.
Me?
Yes.
Can you say more about the membership of the Kadam, who they are, the other members? Are there any females in that group?
That's a good question. Yes.
You spoke about learning and discussing each other's respective narratives, and I'm curious to know how the wider communities, be it the Israeli Jewish community, the Muslim Israeli community, and the Palestinian community in Gaza and the West Bank, how those communities are doing with learning about and understanding each other's respective narratives.
We'll have time for another wave of questions.
No, we won't.
Oh.
These are hard questions. We need a J. We need a university seminar. These are not simple questions. I'm sorry. Okay. Bottom up. Yes, we are bottom up. Our work with religious leaders, women, youth, young adults, it's all bottom up. The top in our part of the world is not doing too well now. They were doing well for a while. You may remember the 90s. We were on a roll, and it stopped. And to be very frank with you, it's very difficult for people who are in these things to then re-entry and go to their communities. They meet lots of opposition. So it's hard. And while we try, it doesn't always work, and there's one step forward, one step backwards. Because the work we're doing, I'll put it this way, is not yet mainstreamed in Israeli society. I would call it avant-garde. It's out there. So when people came to Kedem in the first year, you have to understand this was 2002, 2003, it was the height of the Intifada, they came against the wishes of their wives, children, colleagues, teachers. Everybody thought they were wrong. How can you talk to the enemy in time of war? On both sides. So there was a lot of mutual suspicion. And that group traveled a distance, and it's very difficult to take it further. Here and there, there's some successes, but not enough. The Obama factor does not help us very much. Right. George Mitchell comes over every other week, and nobody pays him any attention. I'm sorry to be direct, but it has to do with a lot of things that I don't have time to go into. It has to do with that we have 40 years of experience of this now. No, I'm serious. You know, if those of you know the history since, I don't know, the Rogers plan, this plan, the other plan, they all say the same, free settlement, nobody even hears it. So it's not making much waves in Israel, right? Or on either side. I don't think it's not, that's my reading. It's not really helping us. The question about the rights of minorities in Israel, Kadi Zibdi can say a lot more about it than I can, but I'll put it this way. Legally, it's a simple answer. According to law, our minority citizens, Arabs, Muslims, Christians, Jews, have rights. Right? They don't like something, they can go to court, they can go elect people in the parliament, yell and scream, they can go demonstrate. They got all the rights by law. And it is a democratic country, not a perfect democratic country like this one. Okay? But by law, there's rights. But there are two other factors. Like minority groups in other places of the world, rights is one thing, and equal opportunity and infrastructure and budgets is another thing. So we share those problems with here and other places. But the other factor is the political, historical, security thing. Okay? And it's hard for me to give you a short answer to this, but 63 years, or whatever it is, 61 years after the State of Israel, the war goes on. And it's just amazing how often we go back to 48. You follow? That the 48 war in the mind hasn't ended. And so, ever since then, the sort of general mindset is a basic suspicion of Palestinians who live in Israel as being with the other side. And so if, God forbid, it happens really, there's a terrorist incident, and the driver is a Palestinian citizen, oh, all those Palestinians are on the other side. Or one leader will say something about, supporting Hezbollah in the war. Oh, they're all, you follow? So that basic suspicion is there, which, in other words, the conflict complicates greatly. That's why he said it's more complicated than in Indianapolis, because we live in an ongoing, unresolved conflict. And until that's resolved, we won't be able to have what you might call normal dialogue. We're having dialogue in conflict. Okay, and for those of you who study or know something about conflict resolution these days, in many places they've thrown out the word resolution. It's now management, conflict mitigation, conflict management, conflict transformation, all these words, because there are people who say that ours is an irresolvable conflict. Rational people sitting around a square table for I don't know how many days at Camp David or will not solve it. It's in math. It's a triangle and a rectangle that doesn't work. Okay. Last point. The question of the narratives that you asked. This is a very complicated question. And the short answer to a very long question is, I think that we haven't gone very far in this. The idea of accepting, no, wrong, listening to, not accepting, hearing the narrative of the other, to hear the narrative of a Palestinian to hear the narrative of a Jew, is right now the province of very few people. A few hundred, a few thousand people who are doing that. Most of the other parts of Palestinian society, whether it's, in my view, in Israel or in the West Bank and Gaza, and on the Jewish side, are still in deep denial and make-believe land and don't think the other side has any story that's legit. Okay, sorry to be very blunt with you. That's where we're at. And that leads me to my last point. In the end of the day, one of the things we've learned from other conflicts, by the way, Kedem traveled. In the first years, we had some money from other governments, and we traveled to Northern Ireland for a seminar. Then we went to Sarajevo and Cyprus, because we wanted to learn about other conflicts. And we tried to get two messages out. One, as I said earlier, conflicts do end. Hint, yours might end too. Don't have to be in despair that this has to go on another 100 years. Second, go to Northern Ireland and meet Protestants and Catholics who were actually doing something together in the difficult days when it was nearly impossible. Hint, you could do the same. You don't have to wait till it's all over. And we've done that in other, but one of the things we learned in Ireland, for example, and I think this is a very serious comment for the future, and this is the link between the political, if you will, and the NGO world, is that at the end of the day, we NGOs with a couple of $1,000s will not solve it. Follow? Unless the governments, when they make peace, also put peace education and interreligious dialogue and all these things into practice in systematic ways, we will be accused, as we are now, of being dropped in the bucket. Okay, we're not strong enough. We don't have enough money. All the people who work in this work in Israel and Palestine are probably one wheel on one phantom. Okay? We don't have much money. So unless the governments, the government of Palestine, the government of Israel, are going to put, which they don't do now, nobody does, not even 1 minute of it now, okay, into this in the future, we're not going to get people to learn to live together. Please.
Follow-up question.
One more. He has to answer.
Follow-up question.
No, go ahead.
כפי שציינתי, יותר קשה לנו לקיים דיאלוג בתוך מדינת ישראל מאשר לקיים דיאלוג, כפי שאמרתי כאן, בארצות הברית.
As I said, it's harder to arrange a dialogue inside Israel than it is here in the US.
אנחנו חשופים לביקורת כל אחד מאיתנו מצד הקהילה שלו.
We are exposed to criticism, each one of us from his own community.
אנחנו שומעים ביקורת מתוך הקהילה שלנו, ואנחנו מתווכחים עם הקהילה שלנו לגבי חשיבות או אי חשיבות הדיאלוג.
We are hearing criticism from our community, and we are arguing about the importance or the non-importance of this dialogue.
אנחנו משכנעים חלק מאלה ששומעים אותנו בחשיבות הדיאלוג, והחלק האחר אנחנו לא מצליחים לשכנע אותו והוא נשאר באותה עמדה שאנחנו נמצאים כאילו בעולם אחר.
We are able to convince some about the importance of the dialogue, and some are not open to the idea.
וזה רק נותן לנו כוח להמשיך בדרך הזאת.
But this is just giving us more strength to continue with our way.
לגבי הפלסטינים בגדה ובעזה, לגבי הדיאלוג שאנחנו מקיימים, אנחנו, האמת, אפשר לומר שבעצם אנחנו זוכים לשתיקה מוחלטת מצידם והם לא מביעים עמדה לגבי הדיאלוג הזה.
The Palestinians at the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, we don't get any response from them. As a matter of fact, it's total silence from their side.
לגבי זכויות המיעוט בתוך מדינת ישראל,
about the minority rights inside Israel,
האמת אפשר כאן להתחיל לדבר ולא להפסיק עד הערב, אבל אני אסתפק ואומר שיש הצהרה על שוויון, אבל בעצם אין שוויון.
we could discuss this issue until late at the evening, which we want, but I can add that technically there is
a statement, a declaration of equality,
but physically it's not there yet.
איך גרנו בבתים משותפים, לשאלה שלך, אז אני אומר שב-48 מדינת ישראל, כשקלטה את העלייה היהודית, חיפשה לאנשים מקום לגור בו, ואז הם השתמשו בבתים גדולים שהכניסו לתוכם משפחות יהודיות וגרו ביחד עם משפחות יהודיות, ערביות.
As a response to your questions about sharing the same building, in 48 when there was a wave of Jewish coming to Israel, they were getting into buildings wherever there was a place and sharing the building with the Arab families.
כמובן זה היה רק בערים מסוימות כמו יפו, חיפה ועוד כמה ערים אחרות.
Of course, this was only in some cities like Haifa, Jaffa, and some other cities.
היום אנחנו חיים ביפו, זה לצד זה, באותה שכונה.
Today we live in Jaffa, side by side, in the same neighborhood.
והיחסים בינינו, למרות מה שקורה בגדה ובעזה, היחסים נשארים יחסים של כבוד הדדי, למרות שכל אחד חי עם הדעות שלו.
And in our area, lives continue in a mutual respect, although each side have different opinions.
כמובן, יש לי חברים יהודים כמו שיש לי חברים ערבים, וזה לא מפריע לנו להיות ביחסי חברות.
I have Jewish friends, I have Arab friends, and it doesn't affect my friendship with any side. If we have time for more questions.
Well, unfortunately, Imam, did you have a question?
Thank you.
That's okay, I got the answer.
Okay, the way that we're going to have to go, the Qadi has to go to Juma. The rabbi is going to stay here and take questions and discussions. I've been asked to make a couple of announcements about ways to continue this discussion here. Number one, when is Ebu Patel coming? When? What day?
November 11th.
November 11th, University of Indianapolis, interfaith discussion. Go to it. There are posters out there. Number two, there is, as part of Spirit in Place, on Friday, November 6th at 7 p.m. at St. Luke's United Methodist Church. The opening event for Spirit in Place will be a panel with Judge Shahid, who just walked out. Take my word for it, he's going to be there. Mickey Maurer, Carrie Newcomer with her glorious voice, Ann Ryder with her televisual presence, and a host of others. The panel will be about sacred places in our lives. You should get a sacred place catalog, look at the events, and go to them. Number three, a lot of you, during the course of this conversation, I am predicting, have wanted to have your own interfaith discussions and dialogues. If you're a Christian, you ask yourself, how can I get to have dinner with a Jewish family, a Muslim family, to have this kind of a process? The International Interfaith Initiative, Provocate, anyone else who wants to be part of that, will help put together that infrastructure to make it as easy as possible for people here in this community to be able to have the same sorts of dialogues that have been discussed here. And if you want to be part of that, talk to Charlie Wiles, talk to Anna Stand Up, one of my Provocate colleagues, give her an email address. Louise is another one of my Provocate colleagues, give her your address. So if you want to be part of an interfaith continuing discussion, let us know and we'll make you part of it. You could be part of something maybe not as special as what's going on in Jerusalem, but something that's pretty damn special here. So I want to thank the Muslim Alliance of Indiana. I want to thank the 4 Jewish sponsors. I want to thank our guests that have come here. I wish that we had all day, but then we'd have to give you another meal. But thank you very much.
And we'll be praying next door. If there are any of you that would like to observe the
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أفضل المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين
and his companion and his followers.
عباد الله أوصيكم
For the servant
وإياي
of Allah,
بتقوى الله العظيم
I ask you to fear Allah and myself
ولزوم طاعته وأحذركم من
and
عصيانه
keep
والابتعاد عن
worshiping
أوامره
Him and following Him.
من يهده الله فلا مضل له
Whoever guided by Allah is not misguided forever and ever.
ولا هادي إلا لمن اتبع رضوانه
And whoever follow the guidance of Allah, he is happy forever.
وبعد يقول الله في محكم تنزيله بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His Holy Quran,
عسى الله أن يجعل بينكم وبين الذين عاديتم منهم مودة والله قدير والله غفور رحيم.
perhaps Allah will make between you and the people who are enemy to you friendship, and Allah is capable of that. He is forgiving and He is most merciful.
ويقول تعالى في محكم تنزيله يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منها رجالا كثيرا ونساء.
And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says also, O people, fear your Lord, who created you from one soul and made you into nations and tribes, so you may know each other.
إن دين الإسلام هو دين التسامح.
The deen of Islam is the religion of tolerance.
وقد أمرنا رب العزة في هذه الآيات الكريمة قائلا لنا أيها الناس إنما أنتم بشر وإنكم أسرة واحدة.
And God is reminding us in those verses that we are all human and we are one family.
فالإسلام ينظر إلى أبنائها أيا كانت أجناسها وألوانها ولغاتها وبلدانها بوصفها أسرة واحدة.
Islam looks at all human as one family, regardless of their race, languages, and colors, and regardless of their religions.
أسرة واحدة تنتمي من جهة القلب إلى رب العالمين.
They all belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their Lord.
ومن جهة النسب فهي تنتسب إلى أب واحد.
And they all belong to one father, Adam.
وأن العداوات بين الناس ليست أبدية.
And that the differences between people are not permanent.
وقد يعادي الناس بعضهم بعضا لأسباب مختلفة.
People might be enemies today for some reason,
دينية كانت أو دنيوية.
religious or non-religious.
إلا أن هذه العداوات لا تدوم أبد الدهر.
But those differences do not last forever.
فالقلوب تتغير.
Hearts change,
والأحوال تتبدل.
and also conditions change.
وعدو الأمس قد يصبح صديق اليوم.
And your enemy yesterday might be your friend today.
فالله قدير على تغيير القلوب.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is capable to change hearts.
من هذا المنطلق فإن الدين الإسلامي يدعو إلى السلام.
And that's how Islam invites people to peace and to change their position.
فإن جنحوا للسلم فاجنح لها وتوكل على الله.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, if they lean to peace, then you also lean to peace and depend and rely on the Lord.
والقرآن الكريم يعلمنا على أن الحوار يجب أن يكون مبنيا على التفاهم وعلى العدل والإنصاف.
And that's why we should have a dialogue. It should be based on justice and understanding each other.
يقول تعالى في محكم تنزيله قل يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in his holy book, O people of the book, come to a common word between you and us.
يخطئ من يجعل الإسلام دين عنف ودين دماء.
Islam is not the religion of violence and blood.
الله سبحانه وتعالى قد أطلق على نفسه 99 اسما.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had named himself 99 names.
وأعظم هذه الأسماء اسم السلام.
And one of the most prestigious names of them is the peace.
سيدنا وقدوتنا سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يعرف طريق الحرب حتى بدأ رسالته.
And our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, did not invite to war. It was forced upon him.
عندما بلغ 40 لم يكن قد شارك في أي حرب كانت في الجزيرة العربية.
He was not a violent man. At age 40, when he received this message, he was not involved in any war yet.
ولا يجوز أن تكون حرب إسلامية إلا دفاعا عن النفس أو دفاعا عن الدين.
And the war in Islam is only justified when it's to defend yourself or defend your religion.
يقول تعالى في محكم تنزيله وإن نكثوا إيمانهم من بعد عهدهم وطعنوا في دينكم فقاتلوا أئمة الكفر إنهم لا إيمان لهم لعلهم ينتهون.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if they violate their oath and covenant and attack your religion, then fight their leaders until they stop.
فهذه الآية الكريمة إنما تقول للمسلمين اخرجوا إلى الحرب فقط إن كان هناك خطر على دينكم وعلى أنفسكم.
So this ayah explains that we are allowed to engage in war if we feel that we are in danger or our religion is in danger.
فقد وصانا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن تكون الحرب الإسلامية دفاعا عن الدين ودفاعا عن النفس إنما تكون حربا حفاظا على القيم الإنسانية.
And a war to defend yourself or your religion is nothing but a war to defend a human right.
وقد علمنا ذلك رسولنا الحبيب محمد حين قال: لا تقتلوا شيخا ولا طفلا ولا امرأة ولا رجل في صومعة ولا تقلعوا ولا تحرقوا شجرة.
And that's why the word Islam was based on moral characters. So that's why the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, do not kill a woman, do not kill children, do not kill any monk in his monastery, and do not even cut trees or burn them.
وأما من يعتبر الجهاد دعوة إلى الحرب فهو مخطئ.
Jihad does not mean waging war all the time.
الجهاد هو جهاد النفس من طغيانها.
Jihad first is to free yourself from its desires and its bad deeds.
الجهاد هو جهاد لإعلاء كلمة الدين وكلمة الحق.
It is a struggle to support your religion and support the truth.
الجهاد هو أن تحارب أنت أيها المسلم نزغات الشيطانية التي قد تدخل إلى قلبك.
It is first to fight your wrong desires.
أما الجهاد بمعنى الحرب فإنما هو الدفاع عن النفس والدفاع عن الأرض والدفاع عن الدين.
But it might mean war when your rights or your land or your religion are violated.
من هنا فدين الإسلام هو دين السلام.
And other than that, war is not allowed, and that's why we say Islam is the deen, is the religion of peace.
ونحن كمسلمون مهما تغيرت أحوالنا فلا بد أن تكون أيدينا ممدودة للسلام.
And that's why, as Muslims, we have to extend our hands for peace all the time.
اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام وإليك يعود السلام تباركت وتعاليت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام.
O Allah, you are peace, from you comes peace, and to you return peace.
أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروا ربكم. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا كما أمرنا وعلمنا حبيبنا محمد بأن نكثر من شكر الله وحمده.
We praise Allah who asked us to repent in more time.
الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا كما أمر وأستغفر الله العظيم من كل صغيرة أو كبيرة صدرت عنا. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. إني داع فأمنوا. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا. اللهم استر علينا وارحمنا وأدخلنا فسيح جنانك. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين في كل مكان. اللهم ارفع مقتك وغضبك عنا. اللهم ارفع مقتك وغضبك عنا. اللهم ارفع مقتك وغضبك عنا. اللهم آمنا في أوطاننا. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم وأنت يا مؤذن أقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
استقيموا إلى الصلاة يرحمكم الله. كونوا مع الله. صلوا صلاة المودع. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.